All right, welcome back to Wrestling Retold and Relive with Richie Mars. I, of course, am your humble, gracious host, Richie Mars, and thank you so much for listening, whether it's Spotify or Apple Podcasts. We were on Google Podcasts, but that's no longer a thing anymore. But that's then, this is now. We are still in the midst of the WrestleMania hangover, and I'm recovering good, but I couldn't do this episode alone. You might know him from his own podcast, Hot Take Wrestling. You might even see him on TikTok every now and then. And this man is so gracious that he gives me shout outs every now and then, in which I tremendously appreciate because that doesn't happen that often. But it's all right. I'm here with Hot Take Wrestling. Bro, how you doing?
Good, man. Hey, it is me, Mr. Imaginary Soapbox, aka Mr. Why Would You Say That, aka Toxic Jose, one representative of the Hot Take Wrestling Podcast. I always have to shout out Richie Mars because Richie Mars knows all, ladies and gentlemen. Richie Mars does know all.
Ooh, you're putting me in a high pedestal there. Hopefully, I
Have
won't
to, bro.
say a bad take instead of a hot take. You know what I mean?
Oh no, there's some bad hot takes out there in this world. Like there's takes that have happened where at this point in a championship reign that has lasted a total of 10 days has been touted as the worst championship reign in the modern era history of WWE. So,
Yeah, let's jump into that because it's only been, not even 2 weeks at this
right.
time. Maybe when this is coming out, it's been about give or take 17 days or
Mm-hmm.
16 days of Cody Rhodes being the undisputed WWE Champion.
Right.
And a lot of people or seemingly a lot of people, are voicing their displeasure that this reign hasn't been hot enough. And it's only been 2 weeks. Now, you and I, we've been watching wrestling for a while, and
Mm-hmm.
usually the post season of WrestleMania takes a while to cook, because everyone's still kind of recovering. And of course, we have the draft coming out, so there is no way of knowing of where the rosters are going to shape, what storylines are going to come out. But I want to ask you, since The Rock kind of showed up the night after WrestleMania and challenged Cody Rhodes, do you think it's in the mind of a lot of people that everything that Cody Rhodes does now is sort of filler? Or why do you think people are just kind of upset, for lack of a better term, about Cody Rhodes' WWE Championship reign thus far?
Because we got what we wanted, and that's a really generic statement. But the thing of it is that as much as we all love wrestling, it is a very opinion based sport when you are able to really objectively look at it. However, this is the problem. The problem is that when you've been in an era that's been filled with like the Vince McMahons of the world, where you're used to championship reigns that happen like maybe 3 to 6 months, 3 to 9 months every now and again, if they're not like the guy, that's what you're expecting. I don't think that people understand that Cody is the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's not a lot of faces in WWE where people are like, oh, that's the one guy that like we're always going to count on, we'll always back. But I think because one, he hasn't fought anybody in front of us in the past 2 weeks. Two, we're not used to seeing the Universal Champion every week on different shows. That now it's an adjustment, and instead of us just being like, oh, this is just an adjustment, we're like, oh, this is just terrible. He hasn't wrestled nobody. There's nothing going on. He's cutting terrible promos. He's not even cutting bad promos. It's just that he's like, they're celebrating him for 2 years. 2 years since he's came back. It was overcoming Seth Rollins, overcoming Brock Lesnar, overcoming certain aspects of tag team wrestling, regaining friends, losing friends, all those types of things or whatever. What people aren't realizing is if you do the lay of the land and look at the terrain that you're on for Cody Rhodes, and you're wondering, who does he go against? There's a lot of things. One, there's always Randy Orton, who he has a legacy with. You can do that. Two, the Jey Uso thing is just going to be another catalyst for a piece of the Bloodline story, which is going to bring an aspect of that. Three, Seth Rollins is injured and on injured reserve, but he can always come back, and that's always awesome. And four, you now have a consistent champion who can wrestle just about anybody. In ring, Cody Rhodes is very underrated, which basically means you can really create a heel narrative with whoever he's with, and he can go at the pace of whoever he's with. I always say the one thing about WrestleMania is whoever loses normally gets a huge push. Walter lost his Intercontinental Championship after 666 days, which is really weird.
Mm-hmm. Mark of the Beast.
Right, Mark of the Beast. But it's Walter now. So what if you have like Imperium have a rival with him for 6 months or whatever? I guarantee you those 2 or 3 matches that happen with Cody Rhodes and Walter are going to be great, great matches. And then everybody's going to be like, oh, that match was great. That match was amazing. The match with Jey Uso is going to be okay. It's going to be good. It's going to be okay. But like Walter, now heel Chad Gable, who now they're talking about doing a Team Angle with Team Gable with Creed Brothers.
Yeah.
so it's one of those things where like if we'd wait, we'd be okay. And I say we because I am a part of the IWC, and mostly how the IWC feels, I can understand how they feel. But at this juncture, nothing's happened yet, and we have to wait. Like we have to, because that's just how Trips is. We have to wait.
Right. There's a lot of great setup so far for some really amazing things, like like you said, Team Gable, Drew McIntyre's pretty much like in the waiting in the wings with the whole CM Punk deal.
Yep.
You got, again, like you said, Seth Rollins on injured reserve, and his return's going to be amazing because he was pretty much the MVP of WrestleMania.
Absolutely.
And the whole thing that people are missing with Cody Rhodes, and people are, I call, in denial about him being the guy. He sold over $1 million of merchandise WrestleMania weekend. And that is the highest that's anybody. Like, you want to throw in like Rock, Stone Cold. Granted, the WrestleMania weekend isn't how it is now. 2-night WrestleManias, plus you got Access and SmackDown, Raw, what have you. Over $1 million of merch is nothing to sneeze at over a period of like 4 days.
No, if you think about it, Cody's not for the adults.
Mm-hmm.
It's for the kids.
Yeah.
And the kids are literally like prying for Cody because Cody's well spoken. He's got a certain aura about him. And as a kid, that's who you want to emulate. I'm not saying he's Hulk Hogan like, but he has that aspect of where, like kids in the 80s were like, oh man, I want to eat my rice and my prayers or whatever. Mm-hmm. Kids are doing the same thing. What do you want to talk about? That type of thing. Like that's just what it is with him. He's the guy right now.
And Cody has like this unique like Venn diagram where it's like he had like a step in the old school, step in the new school, step in the indies, step in like he appeals to everyone, mostly in that kid demographic, but he also gets enough of the adult demographic where you're not hearing the mixed reactions like a John Cena or Roman Reigns. Right. And his body type isn't that either. He just looks like a slightly built, like a normal dude. I think he's like 215, 220, you know? So like around then, so he's not like a cruiserweight, but it's like he wrestles pretty much the perfect WWE style match is what I kind of described. We were talking last week with my friend Marcus, the hero's journey, and a lot of WWE stars don't have that path of the hero's journey usually, which is a storytelling device. And Cody's came in the right place, right time, and he was essentially the only person capable enough to beat Roman Reigns.
Right.
And that just kind of shows how WWE were building their stars at that time when it was still the tail end of the Vince era into the Triple H era, where it's just kind of like there was not going to be anybody hot enough for Roman to lose to and still not collapse under the pressure of that loss. I think Cody Rhodes can handle it well. Yeah. If LA Knight was the guy who to win it, I think that he would be getting turned on as of now. You know what I mean? Like instantly. Yeah. And I feel like wrestling is a very what have you done for me lately kind of industry. It's all about what you've done the latest. And because Cody's been doing this talking and not enough walking, I think a lot of people are paranoid because us wrestling fans were always waiting for the carpet to be yanked out from under us.
Exactly.
And and we're just waiting for the other shoe to drop and just be like, oh, well, this is we got what we wanted, but now the monkey paw effect is happening where it's like something else is going to happen. But honestly, I don't really see that because we have Cody Rhodes and AJ Styles, and I kind of want to shift more towards AJ because last year he didn't do anything. He didn't do nothing. He had a feud with Karrion Kross.
Right.
It happened, and then he got taken out by Solo, and then he turned heel, and he looked like he just ate a village of just like Smurfs, and just like now he's like all jacked up. So he is just the definition of swole. Whatever him and Randy are on, I need
Jesus.
it. Just like
Like
peanut butter, banana sandwiches, just all that.
all
Bam.
the time. Like, bro, what do you like? What like? There's you're not doing the conventional lifts. You're not doing that. You don't lie to me. Don't sit here. Oh yeah, you're not benching. You're not benching. You're not doing any of that. Whatever you're doing, you're using bands, the little contraption where you like
Oh, the
tie it
cuffs.
to
Yeah, the
the
cuffs.
cuff. Yeah, you're using all that. You're Jesus. Holy crap. I was like not even in a space where um as someone like who lifts weights, who just has your days, your chest, your bicep, your tries, your back, all the who has that whole regimen like 4 days out of the week or whatever. You're like, I'm never going to accomplish that.
Yeah.
I'm never going to be able to do that because whatever they're doing is just not what my gym does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it ain't DD. It's not DDPY. I can tell you that
No,
much.
no, it is not. It is not. It's one of those things where like you have a certain way of doing things. Randy Orton literally goes to catering, eats, and has like a full belly and still has abs on top of that. That's crazy. I can't do it.
Dude, he's 275, and I'm just like, damn, he is
Right.
like brolic.
Right. I was like, bro, how are you 275 and fluid at 275? Not even like, when you pack on like Rock is, I think Rock wrestled at 275.
Yeah.
Got down to 265, but he's so like jacked now that it's harder for him to like to move a certain way, and he's older too. But like Randy's 6'4", 275, swole, still fast, still quick, still agile. It's like it's different training. That's a wild training.
Yeah, and going back to AJ Styles and his his brolic body notwithstanding,
Right.
he definitely isn't the AJ Styles of 5-10 years ago. But again, he doesn't need to be. He is like still like, for again lack of a better term, phenomenal in the ring. And him being the first opponent for Cody Rhodes, I'm more positive than negative about it. I'm positive because it's AJ Styles. It's gonna be a great match no matter what.
Right.
I'm kind of where I kind of tilt my head is that he hasn't been on a win streak. And then you have Cody Rhodes, who's they're trying to establish as the newer champion. And with AJ Styles coming in as the new challenger, and they only have about 2 weeks to build this up until Backlash, do you think they could get a lot out of a little amount of time for this feud between Cody and AJ?
My thinking is that with Trips is the match is going to be prevalent over the actual aspect of the storytelling. The match will also be what we have to watch or read into for like the Iliad of Cody Rhodes. Like we've seen where like guys win championships and then they face a random person. Like with Hangman, all that build for him to get to Kenny Omega, all that build for him to face Omega, and then he gets the Murder Hawk. And it was like, I don't see why that's
Yeah, where's the correlation?
Right. But I think with AJ, there's the aspect of the Bullet Club. There's the aspect of in-ring wise, there's no issues because it's AJ Styles. There's the aspect of can these guys wrestle 3 or 4 times and can each match get better? Yes. The question that comes is to how long this can last and be appealing entertainment wise. Because this is just a foothold for Cody or whatever. You could have gave him Jinder Mahal for 15 minutes and gone from there. Like honestly, you could have really done something as trivial or as small as that. But them choosing AJ and not LA Knight is showing me 2 things. One, AJ is going to be the measuring stick of whether or not Cody holds this for a long time or whether Cody holds this for 3 to 4 months. It's one of those things where it's overwhelming that they want Cody to lose. Like it's over. Like they can't even fight it anymore. That just shows that he still has more work to do to be the guy. If it's one of those things where they're watching it in the ring and they're like, oh man, like this is really good, it's going to be Cody for a long time. So I think AJ has to be the guy. LA Knight can't be the guy. He's too over. in ring like he's solid, but he's not AJ Styles, and
Mhm.
he's a face, and they need more faces,
Right.
so it had to be AJ as a heel.
Yeah, and
That's what it is.
also pushes forward the AJ LA Knight issue because again they're one apiece now, so you can build that rubber match eventually down the road if they choose to do that. And with AJ, again, he's in that plug and play spot where it's like you put him in anything, you put him in a tag, you put him in a US IC title spot, you put him in a world title spot, he's going to be believable,
Yeah,
and you don't need to build him up to that point because again he's already been to the top of the mountain and people accept him there.
yeah,
And like you said, this is going to be the test of Cody Rhodes to see if people will still be interested in Cody for a long term.
hmm,
And this is probably his biggest test because he was the champion without being the champion all throughout the last year. He was
yeah,
making the towns, he was being the main event guy. And I know you saw the same video I did where the guy's we want Cody to finish his story, and now what?
right,
Who's going to face? He beat all these guys, but I'm just like, well, again, he has McIntyre because McIntyre still has a win over him. He has Punk down the line, Rollins down the line, like all
hmm,
these Jay, Sammy, KO. He has all these guys that he has history with, and also he hasn't had a long term program with.
right,
And even though for the last year where he was feuding with exclusively pretty much the Judgment Day and Nakamura, they were saving majority of Cody's future opponents for this moment down the line. So now
hmm,
you're going to have contingencies for contingencies and backup. It's not going to be like and I like this guy's moment, but Kofi Kingston, for lack of a better term, where they would
yeah,
just give him like 1 month feuds. Like they'll give him Kevin Owens, then they'll give him Samoa Joe, then
right,
they'll give him Randy, and then they'll give him Randy again, and then
right,
Dolph, and then all these different guys that who we want to see in that picture, but at the time weren't believable in that picture because before then they weren't really doing as much. Kind of similar position AJ's in, but with AJ, his persona has changed when the other guys, their personas weren't really changed.
yeah, yeah. I think what we all forget as wrestling fans is that we want people to be champions, but we forget about whether or not how long we want them to be champion, who we want them to wrestle. We
Mhm.
always want a Kofi to succeed and like be a champion. That was what every wrestling fan wanted, but you never really wanted Kofi Kingston to be champion for like a year or two because you knew
Mhm.
it wasn't going to be one of those things. With Roman, with Roman Reigns, people forget that we booed him for everything, and everything we booed him for, he got so sick of it that when he took the time off to figure out what it is that he wanted to do, he became exactly what we were booing him or we were like not cheering him for.
Mhm.
Wasn't around all the time, barely able to around to be seen. Wrestled in a slower pace, a slower style, made matches his way. You know what I mean? That type of thing. I think now with Cody and with everything that he's doing now, he's there all the time. We see him on a regular basis. The opposite of what we wanted, what we had with Roman Reigns.
Mhm.
He doesn't really wrestle a lot, same as Roman, but he's cutting beautiful promos and having moments. And for us now as wrestling fans, like, okay, enough. Get to the wrestling. And I get it, I respect it. But for 2 years, he would be on Raw, he'd be on SmackDown wrestling, whoever he's going to wrestle. We sat there and we watched and we were pining over it. We were excited over it. And it got to the point where it was like, all right, well, what's next? What are we doing now? But now we actually have like a guy that can fight. We actually have a guy that can fight everybody in everyone's style. Like even in dark matches, they're saying he's wrestling Dominic Mysterio, which is basically a setup for something future down the line to see how Dominic does with this.
Mhm.
People are also forgetting Solo Sikoa is going to be built up now because he lost last year 0-34, 0-38, whatever it
Mhm.
was, and that's him taking his lumps to be on the main roster. That's what I attribute it as.
Mhm.
That's how I'm seeing it. May not even be that, but certain aspects of that are changing for him now. So like now, if you put Solo Sikoa in the main event picture or whatever, who is an actual viable main event guy, who now has shown he can cut a promo by himself, no Paul Heyman,
Mhm.
who has also shown you that he has viable pieces around him to make him be that guy.
Mhm.
Now, like that's like 7 to 8 months down the line or something like this, a callback. We're like,
Right.
oh, I'm the reason why you lost the championship the first time or whatever, and I'll
Mhm.
be the reason why I'm gonna take that type of thing. Just
Yeah.
put Triple H type stuff. So AJ is chapter one of another story.
Mhm.
The question is AJ chapter one of 20 or chapter 1 of 6 months. It's just a difference.
Right. I always attribute it when people are complaining about Cody's story now, where it's just like, imagine you're reading the Harry Potter series, you go to Chamber of Secrets, and you're going like, all right, where's Voldemort? You know, chapter
Exactly.
one, where is it? Where is it? You know, you got to build up to that moment. But you mentioned Solo Sokoa, and one of the biggest interesting points was the new bloodline, it seems to be, with Solo taking over that leadership. And they've built this up pretty well, in my opinion. With last year, you would see during the Roman and Solo versus the Usos match, you would see Roman being the emotional one in disbelief, and Solo's like, dude, get your head on straight. Like, we're doing
Right.
this. And then on SmackDown, you would see like little things like Roman bumping Solo and Solo staring at Roman and Roman just like being frazzled about it. And they built Solo up really well. The
Mm.
whole losing streak thing, I'm kind of like 50-50 on one. It's like, it sucks that, you know, he's on a losing streak. At the same time,
Right.
like, majority of that's house shows
Yeah.
and they're tag matches where he's the one not getting pinned, you know? So I'm just kind of like, yeah, the only like pinfall loss he had since that John Cena match was, I think, with Randy, and it's,
Yeah.
you know, it's Randy. You
Right.
know, it's not bad to lose a Randy.
Right.
But now that he has a different aura about him being this new heir to the tribal chief, you know, you got Tama Tonga coming in, and we got more blood on SmackDown with Kevin Owens, which shocked me, you know, because I'm just like, oh, okay, we're actually really cooking.
Right.
What are your thoughts with this whole bloodline chapter of Solo Sokoa? Do you think he's ready for it? Do you think this is only a test, and if he's not up to the challenge, you might get someone like a Jacob Fatu in there, or do you think it's always going to be Solo who's going to be front and center?
I think that they're going to use Solo because he's a WWE product. If
Mm,
I was being honest with myself, with what I want Tama Tonga to be the face of that new bloodline aspect of it because I'm a huge Tama Tonga fan. That's just me being very selfish
mm,
and being very, very much so being like, I love Tama Tonga, make him the guy.
mm,
This is the thing about that though. Solo Sikoa NXT was great. Okay, NXT Solo Sikoa was great and very underrated. People forget he faced Von Wagner in a street fight, and that was one of their best street fights.
mm,
People forget he was slated to be North American champ at one point or whatever, but it just never like happened that way. Never crystallized, so to speak. It just never came about that way. People also forget how important he was in that 2.0 era, changing a little bit where it was actually getting interesting. Solo Sikoa has always been able to cut a promo. He's smart. He's got great ring awareness, and he does have that aura about him being um, in the ring as something that he has something going for himself. Now, this is the thing: if Jay is out, Jay is already out. Now Jimmy's out, and now it's Tama Tonga. Are you gonna put Jacob Fatu with him? And how long is that gonna last with Tama Tonga, Jacob Fatu, and Solo? Because now you have to have somebody who's going to be the mouthpiece. And Solo can be the mouthpiece for himself. But those two, I'm not sure because I've seen Jacob Fatu cut promos and he's going through the motions of talking. Like he's going through the motions of being able to speak his piece. He's not saying anything emotionally captivating. And I'm not saying that as a knock. I'm saying that as someone who hasn't had to cut promos. Like Jacob Fatu's in-ring work is his work. Like that's what it is. Jacob Fatu is an amazing in-ring competitor. Tama Tonga's in-ring work is his work. That's what it is. In New Japan, Tama Tonga was cussing people out. Okay, he was not saying anything promo worthy. Like it was f bombs here and all type of stuff there. Jacob Fatu is the same, but not in the sense where he's doing it as vulgarly as Tama Tonga. Tama Tonga doesn't give an f. He don't care. But they're both in ring work. Them as a tag team. Oh, that's scary. That's
mm,
scary because now you're saying now what you're doing is you're setting it up the exact same way. Tag team champs and then main event champ. And if I know Trips, he'll coddle them for a while to get what he really wants. Roman's probably gonna get Jimmy and Jay back. I don't know where it'd come back to Jimmy and Jay or whatever. That's how they're probably trying to make him like a anti-hero. because he doesn't want to be a face. He hates being a face. He wants to be a heel. So let's just make him an anti-hero. And then do it that way. This is the problem. When you have war games, it's going to come down to it eventually. Do you really want to have like a bloodline where it's like one bloodline here, one bloodline, like where it's like NWO Wolfpack or NWO Black and White Hollywood? Like, do you want that? Do you really want that?
Yeah.
Like, don't. Let them fight. Don't make it a whole like Bloodline Red, Bloodline the Island. Don't do that. Just make it. Just do exactly what you're copying off of. Do exactly what you're doing. Do Captain American Civil War this way. Do it just like this. Do not make it into a whole Bloodline Red, Bloodline White. Don't do that. Do not separate them. Just make it tribal warfare at War Games and call it a day. Whether you do it this year or next year, I suggest next year because you want to get The Rock involved. That's the way to go about doing it. That's how I would do it, at least.
I definitely wouldn't rush the breakup between Roman, Solo, and Tama, and potentially Jacob and The Rock, just because there's so much interaction that we still can benefit from. Like, I remember a lot of people were very disappointed when Rock and Roman were going to face off at WrestleMania 40, and they're like, "Oh, this ain't gonna happen." I'm just like, "No, it's gonna happen." But the interesting route is now they're a team, and now how is this team gonna work? And then you could build more of a story on that. You could add this element to it, and I think that really did add to The Rock, because The Rock would always show up, do his catchphrases, leave. If you take the Jinder Mahal promo and you take the Austin Theory promo, cut and paste the same thing.
Same thing. The exact same thing.
But now with him as the final boss, we wouldn't be getting this, and now everyone's marveling. It's like, oh, he's carrying the WrestleMania build. He's doing this. I'm like, you don't get The Rock carrying the WrestleMania build, if that's what you think it is, without this heel turn. Wasn't going to happen.
Right.
We would probably just been getting, the same thing, like Rock concerts would still get that. Yeah, it would be fun. But long term, it wasn't going to benefit the company, in my opinion, with Rock still as a babyface, Roman as a heel. Because if you have Roman beat The Rock, you have nowhere to go from there.
Yeah.
Like with this, you could still build up and build up and build up. And the interesting about it is that it seems like the Bloodline storyline kind of deviates from the traditional WWE storytelling that we've been used to. Now it's like you have Kevin Owens, who's just like bleeding buckets, and I'm always a fan of Kevin Owens, but it just seems like he just keeps getting dragged into these Bloodline situations every time, from like the first Roman Reigns, like tribal chief year, to like tag team with the Usos, and now Tom is just like creating vehicular manslaughter on Kevin Owens, and of course it's going to be settled in a match, and probably Tom going over, which it's like that's what should happen.
Right.
But the interesting thing is, to me, is the draft, and Nick Aldis said something very interesting with with Heyman and the Bloodline, saying it's just like losing isn't the only consequence that you guys have. So in my head, like, because I like to think like a little bit outside the box, I'm like, what if the Bloodline in general goes undrafted? What if they become free agents and they just cause this whole chaos throughout all three brands?
Ooh, I like that so much.
Because it's just kind of like you already have these guys who don't like authority,
right.
Like, and logically, why would Nick Aldis draft them? Unless he wants to keep an eye on them, but it's like he realizes he's in over his head. So like I would like the Bloodline story to just like cause chaos throughout all the brands, because why not? It's like you have this dominant faction, make it seem a little bit different. And I want to get your thoughts on the draft concept nowadays, because now it seems like we're getting NXT involved, with some NXT possibly getting some draft picks of some main roster guys going back to NXT. How do you think the Raw brand, the SmackDown brand, and NXT are going to be affected by this draft, if at all?
I think it's one of those things where they're having a backup plan to a backup plan, and it's not where like the drafts when Vince was in charge were just very random and not in the space of any type of safety net. Like, for example, Walter lost his Intercontinental Championship, and that was it's a Raw belt. So who do they have? who do they have on there that had a 5-star with Walter at one point? Ilya Dragunov. They had him on Raw. Okay, that makes sense to me. So you had, I think Tiffany Stratton at one point is in SmackDown, but then you bring up Roxanne Perez on Raw because that might be intriguing if the Bailey thing isn't going to work out. I think everything with the draft now, there's a rhyme or reason as to why someone might go where they're going. I like the Bloodline going undrafted and being like, you guys don't mess with us. So since none of you guys mess with us, this and the third, let me just wreck shop and destroy everything. I love that aspect. But I think now everything is a safety net under in case something happens. Um, I do think that, just as a warning, and this is just my own personal opinion, I do think that if anybody drafts Trick Williams, it should be NXT and nobody else because
I agree.
he is promo wise he's solid. Character wise he's solid. It's the in ring thing. If you really look at it, if Trick Williams is not able to like do certain things where he's able to wrestle with someone for a long period of time, but like he can't do like a 25-30 minute match
Mm-hmm.
without having to be carried. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing because he just really started, to be honest with you. He just started.
Yeah, only 2.5 years in.
Yeah, he just started. So it's not a bad thing. I just think he needs a little more time before you throw him in the deep waters and let him go from there. Melo's fine. Melo's been doing the indies, all type of stuff. Melo's fine. Don't worry about it. But Trick, I honestly would have had him under Melo for a longer time just to be able to see how it goes and how his like in-ring work. I would just have him wrestle more, a lot more. Like I would have him wrestle a lot more. So like him being 6'3", 275 pounds doing a flying knee.
I am amused by his finisher name. The trick knee. I'm just like, oh, that's fun. I always like wordplay, like pun finisher names. It's
Yeah,
just like one of my guilty pleasures. But I do agree that Trick Williams, in ring, let him cook a little bit.
yeah,
It's just like it's kind of like when John Cena was on the SmackDown roster. When he
right,
was doing the Thugonomics deal. Uber popular in ring, kind of looked like a baby deer. A baby giraffe.
yeah.
Where in Trick Williams, he's a lot more athletic than John was in the ring.
Mm-hmm.
It's just with this draft, I'm gonna be very curious to see who from Raw and who from SmackDown are gonna go to NXT because it's
Mm-hmm.
been tremendously beneficial to guys like Baron Corbin, Mustafa
Right,
Ali when he was
right,
there, and I feel like people who get down to NXT or get transferred to NXT and work with Trick Williams is going to benefit immensely from that.
mm-hmm.
And that's what you want if with Trick Williams being as popular as he is, and to get him kind of like caught up, if
Right,
that makes sense, in the ring. Because if he isn't caught up, then you get like the whole Braun Breaker situation. Now, Braun Breaker turned out to be fine. He's more than fine. A lot of
yeah,
people are saying it's like, oh, he's stayed in developmental for a long time. I'm like, honestly, I'd rather him be overcooked than not cooked at all. You
exactly.
know, so it's like similar thing with Trick Williams. Do I think the crowd will turn on him? Potentially, depending on his stories,
Mm-hmm.
um, and depending on his opponents. But you just got to let him, like, cook a little bit, see if he could carry a brand, even though it's NXT, on his shoulders. And now the show is going to be revolved around him. Now, how is the flow of the show going to change with Trick Williams? Is he going to be able to carry a 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 different segments per show?
Right,
So this is why I like NXT as this developmental / third brand, because it's almost like a trial run. It's
right,
like you get like that software. It's like, oh, you get 2 weeks. Just give us a credit card 2 weeks. If you don't like it, you can cancel, get all your money back. Now
right.
with Trick, just gotta let him cook. That's what I think about Trick Williams with this draft.
Just slow cooker. As long as and I agree with the overcooked aspect. If he's overcooked, that's fine. He's prepared.
Mm.
He's adequately prepared. You got Dijak down there who's having good matches. Josh Briggs is amazing. Nathan Frazier's down there. What interests me is the club being down there,
Mm-hmm.
tag team wise, which is really good. The problem with it is that you move Ilya to Raw, fine. Trick might be champion. It might be Dijak. It might be Noam Dar. Whoever you decide. The thing of it is that now you have so much talent that now you have to build someone because Tony D'Angelo's still there. He's still
Mm-hmm.
good. There's aspects of certain characters that interest me. I think for me personally, whoever you're building, whether it be Obafemi, or whoever else is going to be the next one to take it. Lexis King is still out too. Like they have a lot of talent that they don't really discuss or talk about. Like when I have an NXT discussion with a regular WWE fan, not like a hardcore whatever, they're like, who's that? And
Mhm.
that's what I like about NXT for the most part, because at one point, like the 2018, 2019, 2017 era, where we were getting takeovers, you'd watch Takeover before you'd watch the WWE pay-per-view. You'd watch those. So now you're in a space now where it's like, okay, I am going to have to learn about these guys, because when they bring them up, if you bring up Mello, only certain people are going to understand how big of a deal that is. And that's
Mhm.
what I like about that. I like that aspect of it, because now Mello has to rebrand, and I don't want him to be a face.
Right.
Keep him the same heel he was when he was NXT, because that's who he should be for a little while at this
Mhm.
point. And that's just who he's a real straight to it type of guy. He's not a flamboyant talk your ear off type of guy.
Yeah.
Real like, yo, I'm the best. I'm the man. I'm him. That's what this is. There's no other way around it.
And that's what I like about these NXT call ups recently within the Triple H era, because before they would be like, unlike their characters they were in NXT. Now it's like more of a transitional period where they could see if what they were doing in NXT is working, but bigger. And then if that doesn't work, they could kind of transition. Like Tiffany Stratton, for example, basically the same person she was in NXT.
Yep.
Didn't need to change a thing.
Yep.
Braun Breaker, kind of like soft rebooted a little bit. He
Yeah.
hasn't done anything really storyline wise, but again, he was called up at a weird time, like a little bit
Right.
before Mania. Didn't really have anything for him. I thought he was going to win the Dre, the Andre the Giant Battle Royal.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought
But
it was
it's
too.
like, but they gave it to Bronson, which kind of makes sense because Ricochet's on a pretty good, cool streak. Bronson's on a cool streak, and they're doing the whole WWE speed deal. Whether
Yeah.
that's for you or not, hey, at least they're getting an opportunity. That's what I
Yeah.
just think of it as a positive. And with all these NXT stars going up, who do you think from the main roster now benefits going to NXT and being in that Baron Corbin like position?
Ricochet. Ricochet should go down there because he needs to win the NXT title. And when I say he needs it, I really do mean he needs it. Because the actual roster down there doesn't have a large amount of heels and faces. They just have people that are in the roster. Axiom and Nathan Frazier being tag team champions is one thing, but like we were really concerned about them. Noam Dar, the Metaphor, is probably the hottest thing going that's down there.
Mm-hmm.
They also got Josh Briggs, Obafemi, obviously. Dijak can wrestle with any. Dijak is so underrated in NXT that people forget that when Keith Lee was there, him and Keith Lee were having banger after banger after banger. There's nothing you can do about it, and they've been doing that since PWG days.
Yeah.
And then even if you put Dominic Mysterio in that aspect too, to have him win the NXT Championship, that's fine with me too, because he's still young, and as great as he's going to be, he's still on a trajectory where like we've booed this man for a while, and he's still getting better in ring. He's still getting smarter as a performer, understanding who he is. That's a good thing. I think those two guys, Dom and Ricochet, are the ones that we should really be keeping an eye on of them going to NXT. Because if they go to NXT down there, it's gonna be rough. They're gonna run roughshod.
Mm-hmm.
Because Dom is gonna do double duty. He's got to do double duty. Rhea's gone. He's got to do double duty. Ricochet, I would just keep him down there. And the only reason I say keep him down here is this is now for Ricochet to be able to build what he can do when he gets back to the main roster, to build on it from there. Have him develop being able to talk more on the mic. Have him develop more being able to be a presence on the mic. Because we all remember King Ricochet on the Indies or whatever, and he wasn't the greatest of talkers. Remember Prince Puma from Lucha Underground? But like now it's time for him to get like a different aspect and a different character. Like it's time for him to develop that character
Mm-hmm.
that he needs to have to be able to be that space. So Dom or Ricochet for me is the ones to look out for if they go to NXT.
I definitely agree because both of them can be in a position where they could lead a division or lead a brand, but
Mm-hmm.
they're not in that position to lead a Raw or SmackDown, whether it's mic work, whether it's in ring work. Both
Right.
of them are pretty much like, I don't want to say in the same thing, but it's just kind of like they're in this bubble where it's like they're a good hand. Dom has great heat. So
Right.
whoever he's facing is going to get cheered by proxy. But
Right.
what's after that? What's more to
Yeah.
develop them? And with Ricochet, I would like to see him get more opportunities on the mic, and I think NXT would be a good spot to do it. And I think him, whether he's the speed champion or coming down to NXT, it's only going to bolster Ricochet because now you have a face of on basically two shows. One is like 3 minutes, but again, it's still
Right.
something. It's still capturing a new audience. Like I think I saw his match with Speed. It got like 4.2 like million impressions or something. Now I'm not sure how TikTok like records their videos, but at least it's getting to that many accounts,
Right.
So it's just like it's not all gonna be people who follow WWE. And with Dominic, yeah, like dude busted out a destroyer on Raw, you know what I mean? So it's just like he's just improving by leaps and bounds. And you mentioned Rhea Ripley, and again, one thing that happened during Post-Mania, Rhea Ripley vacated the women's championship, and as of this recording, a battle royal would have happened to crown the new women's champion. I'm not a big fan of battle royals determining a champion. Like I think they like whether this happens or not. I don't know. I like where it's like the two final people left, both feet touch the floor, and then they do a match. I had the idea since we have Queen of the Ring coming up, you vacate it, you make Queen of the Ring, women's championship. It kind of writes itself. It's in May,
Yeah.
so it's like we won't have a champion for a month. But again, Rhea wasn't really defending the championship on Raw really consistently either. So
Right.
I wouldn't see any harm of holding it up for a month. What is your thoughts on Rhea vacating the championship? I had a lot of people tell me it's like, oh, she's taking time off to get married. Oh, she's getting pregnant, even though that's not happening. But what do you think is the right way to determine the women's champion now that it's vacated? And who do you think are a couple of the contenders that would make a believable women's champion?
I think that this was not a what do we do with Rhea? This is a what do we do with Liv aspect. Rhea has solidified that mommy character so well that even if she lost the championship at any point, we'd have been fine because mommy's always on top. We love it.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a Liv thing. Liv in ring at Elimination Chamber showed how good she is in ring. The problem with that is, and the issue with that is that it's not believable to have Liv beat Rhea without a lot of help. If they have a one-on-one match that lasts 25 minutes and Rhea is like killing her, and then Liv gets a roll up, we're gonna be pissed. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's your championship reign down the drain. At least with this aspect of it, it shows Liv had to beat her up. It shows Liv had to cheat to do it. It shows Liv is playing the I'm the victim here. Okay, I'm the one that got you. She beat me up a long time. I'm just getting her to get back, which I appreciate. But this in a battle royal takes away the Nia Jax factor. So now Nia Jax wouldn't be able to win outright. Takes away the Zoe Stark factor because Zoe Stark is probably their best in-ring worker there and that aspect of wrestling. Takes away the Becky thing because she's gone. Takes away the Charlotte thing, she's gone. So now you have a battle royal where now you have to see what you got. You got to see who's on your roster, who can you use. Because now with Liv being essentially 2018, 2019 Alexa Bliss without the characteristics of being spooky. Mm-hmm. Now it's just a whole thing where now you have to create this narrative for Liv. Scrappy champion. The not the woe is me, but like, come on guys, I had to get my revenge. I don't know why y'all so mad. You got to make Liv a certified demon of a heel, and I don't want you to make her like a demon, like in terms of the sense of the word, and being it like a fiend type thing. You have to make her like she's really messed up. Like she's really, 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 really messed up. You have to make it so like some of her wins, hard cheating, like just cheating in front of our face. Mm-hmm. You have to make it where like some of her wins and some things she gets over on is her bending the rules terribly, like just feverishly bending the rules. Mm-hmm. Because there's no viable way that you're telling me that in any shape, fashion, or form that Liv beats Rhea Ripley without some type of help. It just doesn't happen.
And that type of help, I think, comes in the form of if she's ready, if she's prepared. I know she's been off and on dealing with her situation with Raquel Rodriguez. And that is a way to tie her back in because if you remember last year, Rhea and Raquel had a thing and Liv attacked Rhea because of Raquel, and then you kind of tie in this nice little story of the Liv and Raquel partnership that seemingly was random when it was first concocted. And now there's more of a reason for them to be together than ever before. And now
Yeah,
you give Rhea Ripley those odds of just her having to solidify her babyface run by taking out not only Raquel, but she has to do that in order to get to Liv. And with Rhea Ripley seemingly going down the anti-hero babyface path, the Judgment Day now has a new co-opponent as Damian Priest as World Heavyweight Champion.
right.
And I don't know why a lot of people were making a big deal about Damian Priest being 41, winning his first world title.
Mm-hmm.
Just because like it is a great accomplishment, but I never saw age as a factor of being too old or too young to
Mm-hmm.
win a championship. It should come by work ethic and merit alone.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure if it's like I'm not just a fan of the Money in the Bank concept anymore, but it's like you can only do the same Money in the Bank type of spot so many times before it gets a little repetitive. And I think the Money in the Bank spot is a way to rush someone to an opportunity to see whether they sink or fail. Like we've seen it with Swagger, we've seen it with Liv when her
Yeah.
run with SmackDown Women's Champion happened. We saw it with Miz a little bit. It just seems like a quick thing, just to kind of put somebody out there. But
Right.
with Priest, since he was in the tag matches all along and he wouldn't get pinned in tag matches, I think the last time he got pinned was at War Games.
Right.
But you have this built-in story with Priest saying he's the leader, but now Judgment Days are all equals, but Rhea's now out, so now Priest is assuming that leadership position. Now with the tension him and Balor were teasing last year, now kind of coming back to the forefront.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of great things that are tying together. How do you feel about the Judgment Days progression, and do you think this is the final year we're going to see Judgment Day as this full faction?
I think they're going to give them two more, like at least 2 years. And the reason why is because if Damian Priest's run is good, at best, good, then they're going to be like, he needs to be in a faction to be viable.
Mm.
If Damian Priest's run is great and amazing, Finn's going to be out of there. They'll keep Dom. JD will stay and then just wait for Rhea to come back. And then they'll probably do like a Finn Bullet Club thing if barring anything happens with AJ Styles or anything of that nature. My thoughts on it. I think that because Triple H is a faction guy, that they'll probably last like another at least bare minimum year, maximum 2. If they want Damian to be able to be a viable piece in the future, because he is 41, you kind of got to use him now while he's in his prime. The end of his prime is like 45, 46, 47 if he's out of shape. If he just chooses not to stay in shape. But he's in a space where he's in his prime. He gave us that banger with Finn Balor at NXT In Your House. He's given us banger after banger since he's won the Money in the Bank contract match. People forget that he had one with Seth. He had one with Cody at one point, and those were good matches. People forget about that. But I think that once we get into his space now with Judgment Day, Damian is going to be the guy because he's showing us he can be the guy. And the reaction he got in Philly was showing that he's the guy. So that's somebody that they're going to be looking for a long period of time. So bisexual Undertaker is going to be a great aspect.
I love how Undertaker uses that thumbnail saying, I met the bisexual version of myself. And it's just Taker like looking like his head exploded with it. And I'm just kind of like, the Undertaker using memes now wasn't on my bingo card list, but
Right.
I'm not mad that's not happening. And I love how Damien's like, he's like, I don't even know where that came from.
Right. Podcast Taker is pretty cool. I like Podcast Taker, except when he has like weird takes. But Podcast Taker is pretty good.
Yeah, I like how he clarifies his takes too, because a lot of like the rumors were going around, or like oh, he was saying this generation's too soft, and he's like, I wasn't really saying it. He's like, it's like just different nowadays,
Right.
like Granny still criticizes like video games and stuff, but it's like now it's a more healthy environment backstage within WWE. which is like you and I, we don't know like what the backstage life is like, but with all these interviews coming out, that people are more happy with this new Triple H era of
Mhm.
creative. It really is kind of eye opening to see how creative was before and how creative is now.
Mhm.
And they are promoting that this is a new era quite a lot on WWE television. Do you think it's kind of getting ad nauseum of them promoting this new era, or do you think it's just kind of like a soft like reboot rebranding technique that they're doing?
I would say it's the latter, where it's the rebranding, reboot, and they have to do that because Netflix is in 2025.
Mhm.
They have to make us forget about the charges against Vince McMahon. They have to make us forget about some of the things that have happened and transpired with him as a regime. Because for like after the ruthless aggression era, it was just McMahon. It was all him. And Trips had NXT at one point, but then lost that from a McMahon decision at that point. So they have to kind of warp the thought of what we think WWE is. So WWE is going through dramatic changes, marketing wise, and just process wise as well. Like they have to change it that way. And I like what they've done thus far. Um, I think there's some things they can do better, but that's just what it is. Like that's just me being a fan. But I like what they've done, and I like how they're doing it, and I like how they're going about putting it together. And them celebrating Trips now while he's able to do so is showing that they really believe in what he's doing, and I like
And
that.
one of the biggest changes that they did were rechristening and rebranding the tag team division and the tag team titles.
Mm-hmm.
They now have the World Tag Team and the WWE Tag Team titles back from the Ruthless Aggression era. Of course, the OCD part of my brain is like the World Tag Team title lineage was a part of the WWE Tag title lineage when they first got it. So a lot of kerfuffles right there. But about the kind of like the rebirth of tag team wrestling in WWE, when tag team wrestling was almost like a dirty word. I believe it was
Right.
Freddie Prinze Jr. who was on the writing team for a while, and he pitched to Vince, going like, "Hey, I have this great tag team match idea," and Vince is like, "Freddie, I have to pay 4 guys for one match," and then Vince just leaves. Which is like that's how Vince thought of tag team wrestling, where it's
Yeah.
like why pay 4 guys for to just have one match on the card when I could like have like 2 matches for that.
Right.
So what do you think about them splitting the tag titles back up again? Do you think they have a strong enough tag team division to warrant 2 tag team titles?
They do now. I think that because of the teams that you do have on the actual tag team division, that you're actually going to be able to create more opportunities for more matches. Uh, A Town Down Under is going to be one of those ones to watch. Like
I,
you're going
I
to watch
love them.
Grayson Waller and freaking I can't think of his name.
Theory.
Yeah, Austin Theory. Jesus, Austin Theory. I totally forgot. Like you're gonna watch them run roughshod, and you're gonna watch them be a heel tag team that they end up loving. Like that's what's gonna happen with that.
Mhm.
But you also gotta remember, Street Power still exists when a member of the Viking Race come back. They still exist. The club is still there. You also got to remember that some of these guys that are now in the tag team division on NXT are going to be there too. Like they're still, again, there's still aspects of that too, where the Creed brothers are still a major thing. They're still young, so they still got to learn, the way law of the land and how things go. But I like how he's putting that aspect of it. Now, I don't like the Raw tag team titles. I love the SmackDown ones,
Mhm.
just like the Raw ones. I think the Raw ones are like the Easter cups, where they have like the shinier silver, and
Yeah.
it's all right. I gotta get used to that, but it's fine. I think that Trips knows the importance of tag team wrestling because he knows that some of his stars came from that. DIY is a product of that. I even think at one point when he had the Undisputed Era, that was a product of that at one point. So those matches matter. Like some of the best matches from Takeovers were tag team matches, and Trips knows that. Like he knows those are the memorable ones. So I'm glad they're putting that back in. I'm glad they're adding that as an aspect to what they have in their formula because it's a necessary thing. Tag teams are very necessary.
Mhm. And tag teams are very necessary. And when we talked about off air, Motor City Machine Guns going to AEW, and now AEW's at a point where it's almost like the inverse, where they were kind of on WWE's heels. Now WWE's on AEW's heels, at least in a creative sense.
Exactly.
when did you think that switch kind of happened? And do you think because Triple H now has more control that AEW now has to up their game? Because before it was like they were competing against WWE on easy mode, but now they're on legendary.
Yeah,
Now they have to kind of like put pedal to the metal. You got Swerve, you got Christian Cage for a bit, you got Tony Storm, but you need more of those characters in order to stay consistent and stay competitive. What do you think AEW needs to do?
they have to stick with what they know. They know wrestling, like they know pro wrestling. They don't need to do elongated storylines to get over with us, to get over to have us capture them. We love AEW for the reason we love AEW, and the storylines that they do, if they're taking baby steps to create vast and deep storylines or whatever, and that's what they're doing, okay, I respect it. But for now, the reason why we loved you for the past 5-6 years, you gave us great wrestling matches, you gave us great fantasy booking, and you put those matches on that allowed us to be able to kind of dream about what could be. That's why we love you. The stuff that we don't love you for is the weird matches that no one asked for, the bad storylines, and the easily guessed aspects of what happens at AEW. We all knew who the devil was once Adam Cole stepped foot into saying that he wasn't going to be the devil. Like, we realized that what that aspect of it was. When FTR became 7-time champ, was winning all the belts at one point, WWE was like, we got to take notes of tag division at that point. And I know Tripp saw that. When Swerve, who was a big deal in the NXT aspect and the cruiserweight division became a thing, this kind of forced WWE to be more creative. They both need each other because they both make each other better. I think AEW now just has to stick with what they know. Our wrestling is what's going to sell. Our ability to build stars and allow them to be themselves what's going to sell. Timeless Tony Storm is the best woman's character in wrestling right now.
Agreed.
There is no better character than that. Tony Storm in-ring is still good. Tony Storm promo work is even better. And now, like, Timeless Tony Storm, it's one of the best things going. I strongly suggest that anybody that listens to this podcast, go ahead, go watch the YouTube video from when she became Timeless Tony Storm to now. It is a dramatic change. It's beautiful to watch. Mm-hmm. It's beautiful to watch. So I strongly suggest that people take an actual gander and listen to that, because people don't understand that Tony Storm was there and she was doing a WWE gimmick. No one cared. Tony Storm got with like faction with Ruby Soho and Paige. No one cared. Timeless Tony Storm happened. Oh, changed the game. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Bro, it's like a phoenix from the ashes. It is fantastic. And no one respects it, which kills me because no one talks about it as much. Same thing with the Mustafa Ali thing that he's doing in Indies right now. Go watch that too. That's awesome. Like, the things that are happening outside of WWE, you got to watch those too, because those are important, because some of those people might want to come back.
Yeah, one of those characters that get over, like, organically, because they're doing something so different, and yet it's catching on like the whole Joe Hendry thing. It's going, like, mainstream, because everyone's like, who's this Joe Hendry guy? But it's like the whole entrance video is so memeable. Like, Joe Hendry is such a likable guy. I remember watching him on ICW. I remember like all the other like parody music videos he would do, and he's just so immensely entertaining. I'm so glad he's getting the recognition that he is now. And going back to Tony Storm and being this three-dimensional character of the women's division in not only AEW but pro wrestling in general, that's what I want more in my wrestling, because you could turn on to Raw, you could turn on to SmackDown. It's like, okay, Bayley's cool, but who's Bayley? She's the role model. I'm like, okay, what is that? It's like, I want to find out more about these characters, like Bianca Belair. Love Bianca. She's the EST. I'm like, okay, what's the EST? Oh, she's the fastest, stronger, so this, that. I wanted more layers from this onion that I'm peeling, you know what I mean? Exactly. And that's what I think the women's division needs, because there's a reason why when we talk about the legends of the women's division, people seemingly only bring up Trish and Lita, because those were the only characters that were able to receive multiple dimensions of their character work. And now we're in a point where Charlotte, Becky, Bayley are now kind of like the old guard. And even then, they're not really as developed as Trish and Lita were, because they weren't in the main storylines. But now we're in a place where we're getting somewhat of that new guard coming up, where whether it's Rhea, Tiffany Stratton, Liv, like all these people, Jade. And we're finally at a healthy point with the women where it's like, good, we got a strong women's roster. let's dive a little bit deeper into that.
Exactly. And I think that characters are what's going to really put a wrestler over. I love, like, before all the allegations and everything happened and before everything was ruined for me, I was a big fan of the villain, Marty Scurll.
Yeah.
Huge fan. Because that character that he portrayed and created was something that just was a big fan of. But, like, after all the other stuff, it was like,
Yeah.
But, like, I think the character is what gets everyone over. Like, the aspect of Thomas Tony Storm is what makes her so cool in the women's division. Like, even if tonight, where she faces, I think, Thunder Rosa and somebody, I think is it just Thunder Rosa?
It's just Thunder, yeah.
Yeah. I love Thunder Rosa, but I think that even if she were to lose, it's fine because her character is what's going to like propel the test of time. Like, you just can't change a great character.
Yeah. I 100% agree. We're about to wrap it up a little bit, but I want, for the year of this wrestling year of 2024 going into 2025, what are your 3 biggest predictions? Like, they don't need to be like what you think is correct, but what do you think is like the outside prediction, outside the wall, that you're like, all right, this is my stance, this is what I think is gonna happen?
Seth versus Cody, WrestleMania 41.
Ooh.
The rivalry of the year is going to be CM Punk versus Drew McIntyre. AEW is either going to fumble with Swerve Strickland, or they're going to do something massive with him. And I know that's like an open-ended thing where that could either happen either way. But I'm leaning more towards the fumble. And the only reason why I'm leaning towards the fumble is because the way they built him and Samoa Joe up is almost to the point where you don't want Samoa Joe to lose, but you see Swerve do and he's close. So my only question is, it's the same thing with Kofi Kingston. I want to see him win it. I don't know who he wrestles next. That's it. Those are my 3 things.
Yeah. All right, my 3 things. Gunther's gonna win King of the Ring.
Okay.
And then he's gonna face Cody at Bash in Berlin.
Okay.
I want a full Rocky IV kind of deal. You know. I just want like Cody, like, you know, bleeding Gunther, just like chopping Cody, because the story is there for the past like 2 years of the Rumble. Because like I just need to see that.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm thinking Ospreay's probably going to be AEW champion for the rest of the year after All In. Like, whether it's him versus Swerve or him versus Joe. Like, the thing is, it's like I'm 50-50 on Swerve as champion, like you said, because it's like once he wins the championship, what's next? You know, there's not just much to do. And my next bold prediction is that, all right, I don't know what I'm saying. Oh boy,
this is when the bold one comes out. This is when the bold one comes out. The hot ones come out right here.
All right, we're gonna get a women's main event on a pay-per-view.
Okay.
And it will be for the tag team titles. And it'll be Bianca and Jade challenging either Kabuki Warriors or somebody, but I think they give Jade a main event on a pay-per-view this year. Yeah, that one was my spiciest one.
I'm not saying you're wrong, because I don't think that would be wrong.
Yeah.
But that match better be short. It better be short.
We got Brock and Goldberg, you know, so it can happen. Oh my God. That should have been a spicy take. Goldberg's coming back.
No, God, please, God, no. God, he didn't even know who Asuka was. Some girl named Asuka tried to break my streak. No, bro, that was.
What's even weirder about that, of course, we're going to go on a Goldberg tangent, is he tweeted, it's like, oh, the streak's in good hands with Asuka. And I'm just like, oh, that's when you know the check cleared.
Right. Jesus, bro. Like, come on, man.
Yeah. And a bonus prediction, I don't think AEW keeps up with the rankings for the rest of the year.
No. And the only reason why, okay, all right, unless MJF comes back and
Mm-hmm.
runs Ref Shop
Mm-hmm.
and makes Undisputed whatever they are now
Mm-hmm.
interesting, it's not going to be a thing. So
Yeah, and that's my thing with the rankings because I had a video on this and got like a lot of pushback. It's like, oh, it's still new. I'm like, well, you guys made fun of WWE Speed and that's still new,
right,
but like the whole ranking stuff. I'm like, well, why is Mercedes getting a championship match? It's like, oh, they're letting her recover. I'm like, okay, then why does she get a championship match?
I don't understand that at all. I don't
You know, and
understand it at all.
I'm like, you got to like the rankings, like the concept of it. I'm fine with like the concept. I like. It's just that it's not clear how they work.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just like I just see 5 names, and for the men's side, they have 4 singles championships. One of them is a championship to get into a tournament to retain that championship. I don't know what like if anybody wins
Right.
something from the tournament. The other one is was supposed to be like the All Atlantic, and now it's international, and now
Mm-hmm.
it's just another thing. So it's like it's confusing. Like I would like them to have like separate rankings for everything, just so it's like it's a little bit more organized. And then we have the
Right.
trios championship that finally got as we're recording this probably unified by now, which is good. But I'm just kind of like I just like more explanations. I don't want to assume anything
Right.
when it comes to rankings and stuff like that.
Because the winning aspect of it all doesn't change. That like it doesn't change. Like CM Punk was 7-0-1 when he got a championship match. It was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
So it's like 7 is the numbers is like the magic number 7 where you get to get that aspect, or if it's like
Yeah.
which is it? It's just it's a lot. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
Yeah, we will indeed. But that was this episode of Wrestling Retold and Relive with Richie Mars. Thank you, Toxic Jose, Hot Take Wrestling, for joining me. Please, without further ado, please plug everything that's coming up for you and where people can find you.
We are on hiatus over the next 5 weeks. We got to take a break from season 9, so now we're going to season 10. That will be as of
Ooh.
May 15th. Follow us at Hot Take Wrestling Podcast on all platforms. That's Twitch. That is Instagram. Wrestling Take on Twitter, I believe. And then also Hot Take Wrestling Podcast. Is you can search it in the YouTube channel. It's under Energy Network, which is a TV network. But you can search under there. If you have public access on Chicago, we will be in the public access aspect of it in probably the next 3 or 4 months. Following me, just follow me at Joe Freelon, FREELON, 3 lowercase i's. Other than that, though, follow wrestling, love wrestling. Tribalism is stupid. Enjoy yourself, guys.
Couldn't say it any better myself. Again, my name is Richie Mars. You could follow me at Retold Richie Mars on the Instagram and on the TikTok. And got some merch in the works, so keep your eyes out on that. And of course, you could catch me all day, every Tuesday, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TTFN, ta for now, and we will see you next time.